But I want to make a very valuable point, and I think it's just very important. You know, especially as fight fans. I can only speak as a fight fan right now. As a fight fan, I notice there's very little positivity by certain groups and certain fight fans concerning boxing. Now, boxing's always been this way, so it's not some tremendously big, but I find that there are people who have tremendous arrogance and egos who feel they're hardcore fans when they don't know nothing about boxing to start with. But anyway, believe they're hardcore fans, disrespecting the current great fighters of our time. And it wasn't always this way. I remember in the 80s, people were less, well, again, I wasn't a hardcore fan or anything, but in the 80s, people were less likely to disrespect, you know, the greats of their era. They just didn't do it, you know. And I find today, with all the knowledge we have and all of that, that I see, especially in groups, a lot of people are willing to tear down fighters. If the fighters are not great fighters and they're good fighters, they tear them down. And if they're, you know, they make it to contention level, become a contender, or they're a prospect, or they're a journeyman, people are willing to tear down fighters so rapidly. And it does not, to me, in my opinion, it doesn't make the sport any better. You're not helping the sport by doing this. And I know that this precedent really was set by Larry Merchant, okay? People say he was very critical and hard, but Larry Merchant really, in my opinion, tore down the sport quite a lot with some really incredible fighters. But just see, Howard Cosell, even though he started off questioning Muhammad Ali, Howard Cosell made Muhammad Ali because Howard Cosell, even though he didn't know too much about boxing himself, went along with Ali and began to see how Ali was a beautiful person. And Howard Cosell was able, he was antagonistic with Ali for a while, and they would have their little banters, but he had respect for Ali. You know, and even when he pitched questions and when he was questioning Ali, and then he became pretty much Ali's biggest ally, right? Larry Merchant, now here's the thing. Before I go to Larry Merchant, I want to say there were other commentators who commented on boxing, and these people, they never were biased. They just commented on what was happening, and they would call the fights as they were. I like them. In fact, still, you know, in the UK, BT Sports, Sky Sports, you get less bias. All right? You listen to Sky Sports to this day. Paulie Malignaggi, I really have a lot of respect for Paulie. Sometimes he's very biased in what he says, but I let certain things slide. But Paulie has a YouTube channel on YouTube here, and I really appreciate Paulie. You can say what you want about Paulie Malignaggi. That guy knows his boxing. But I loved him as a commentator. I love some of the commentators on DAZN. I love some of the commentators on PBC. Some of them are good. Roy Jones Jr. was always good to me. Always a great commentator. He didn't get to really say what he wanted to say, but Roy has a lot of experience. Brilliant guy. I'll go live of Link. I love your work. I'm UK. RJJ. Yes, sir. Beavis abides. All right, man. I don't know who you are, but going back to what I was saying, you know, in this day and age, we have to, as fans, support boxing. We have to make people love boxing. What I mean by that is, the MMA fans, they're very into MMA. And yes, they have their little critiques and stuff about MMA, but they support their fighters. They support the MMA fighters, right? Boxing's been around forever. We as boxing fans need to balance what we do. We can be critical of boxers. We can say, hey, I don't like that move. I don't appreciate that, but this guy is the best. You have to be able to separate your feelings from what's actually facts and what actually is what it is. For example, all right, I don't like that Canelo's not facing Demetrius Andrade. I don't like that Canelo's not facing Jamal Charlo. I don't like that Canelo is not facing David Benavidez. However, I separate that And I'm able to understand that Dimitri Bivol is a challenge. I do not know if Canelo can beat. And I have to acknowledge that Bivol is a very good fighter. Okay? I also have to acknowledge that I don't want to see Canelo face Triple G. Okay? That's me. That's my personal preference. I don't see it. Why? What's the point of it, right? I thought if he fought Dimitri Bivol and he fought somebody else, like maybe David Benavidez or a Jamal Charlo. I wouldn't say David Benavidez because David Benavidez is a 168, right? Demetrius Andrew, if you want to bring up Demetrius Andrew, face Demetrius, I don't care. Or Canelo faces, he faces Jamal Charlo, whatever. My point anyway is, I just think Triple G is just, he's old. He may be juicing or whatever, but he's still not going to beat Canelo. He's just not going to beat Canelo because he's too slow now, right? He could still pull it. No, he can't pull it off. He can't. I mean, I'd be totally unrealistic to do it. He's not going to be able to beat. He couldn't beat Canelo officially, whether you guys believe it or not. Officially, we go with the official. He couldn't beat him when officially. He didn't beat him the first fight officially. There was a draw. Second fight, Canelo beat him officially. Whether you agree or disagree with that, that's how it went. You expect him to win a third fight? Like, what? How? Like, how? First of all, Canelo's fighting at 175. Comfortably beat everybody in 168 except for Benavidez. That was the last guy he had to dust off, and he didn't do that because Benavidez didn't have a title. He had the title, but he should have defended against Benavidez, in my opinion. Okay? I know the WBC's like, oh, well, let him mature, let him get better. No, Benavidez is a two-time world champion. He ain't need to do no more. He don't need to get no better. Okay? Guys face each other in their primes. And Benavidez is in his prime right now. Charlo's in his prime right now. Andre is in his prime still. So why not face him? You know what I mean? Because everybody likes this prime thing. Okay? I'm not saying that a prime fighter is the be-all and end-all. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying. Now, what I'm saying is, you put aside all of that. You put aside that these are the people I would like to see him face. And maybe he has a history of not facing those guys and saying bad things about them. And we don't know if he's eager to face them or not. But my point is, whatever his reason, right now he's facing Bivol. And that's a good fighter. When we disrespect the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world, because his resume shows us, pound-for-pound #1, let me tell you 2 reasons why. His last performance, his resume, okay, and his skill set, the eye test. When you put all those things together, there's nobody that even equals Canelo out there. Tyson Fury doesn't have the resume. Terrence Crawford has a resume, but still not strong like Canelo's resume. Canelo fought the #1 guys at 168, right, and beat them all, right? So his resume is just ridiculous. Okay? So when you think about this, you can't say whatever you want to say. You can say he cherry picking. You can say whatever you want to say. But just remember, when you say these things and they're not really true, right? They're not really true. Remember this. It reflects on the sport. And people who don't know better are going to echo you. And that does not help the sport. So I always tell people, if you're going to have a critique of somebody, that's one thing. Make sure it's honest and truthful. And the second thing I want to say is, don't tear down your icons. If the best guy in your sport is Canelo, whether you like him or hate him, you support that. Because he's the face of boxing. You understand what I'm saying? So you respect that. You watch the professional boxers, the top professional boxers, and almost every single one of them acknowledges Canelo as the guy. And I personally, from the eye test, think that Terrence Crawford's pound-for-pound #1. But they're jostling, you know, Canelo and Terrence Crawford are jostling for that position right now. And Errol's kind of in the mix as well. But ultimately, in the end, you got to respect the sport. When you disrespect the icons of the sport, you're disrespecting the sport. Another thing I want to say is that in boxing, you cannot be telling me that you respect the past greats, but you're disrespecting the present greats. Now I'm going to list some of the present greats in the sport of boxing. We got a heavyweight, Tyson Fury. He's great. He don't have all the accolades to officially boost him up to the super great status and say all-time great like that. But if you call him the top 5 all-time great, I understand why you would say that, because of the eye test. And you can't see how nobody can beat this dude, okay? He's a great. Anthony Joshua in this era is a great. Alexander Usyk has proven himself. He's a great. When you disrespect Tyson Fury, when you disrespect Alexander Usyk, when you disrespect Anthony Joshua, when you disrespect Deontay Wilder, and I'm talking about disrespect in the sense of you're not telling the truth, and you're just coming off at the top of your head and what you think. You're not looking at what these fighters bring to the table, the eye test of these fighters. When you're not even paying attention to what strength these fighters have and what they do in their game. When you tell me that Dillian White, he was nobody, Tyson Fury was going to mow over him, he's nobody. But you look at Dillian White's resume, it is crazy. He has a crazy resume. The dude has been matched tough for a lot of fights. Dillian White has more top 10 heavyweights on his resume than Anthony Joshua does. Than Tyson Fury does. He wasn't fighting champions. But in the time when he was supposed to be the #1 contender to get the WBC title, he was fighting top 10 guys non-stop. Okay? And nobody wants to give him the credit that he deserves. We move out of heavyweight. We look at the Cruiserweight Division, which nobody really talks about. Maris Bretta's been Cruiserweight champion for how many years? This guy's a long-reigning Cruiserweight champion. You could say the division's not that strong, whatever. But at the end of the day, this dude been a long-reigning champion. He been at Cruiserweight reigning for a very long time. This dude's building a reputation for himself. Maris Bretta's been a name for a long time, folks. More than a decade. Alright? That's extraordinary. Nobody's talking about this stuff. This boxing's to inspire. Why are we busy talking about, oh, Errol didn't face Crawford and all kinds of negative things? We're going to get Errol versus Crawford this year, by the way. We're going to get it. Guaranteed. Okay? What is my point? My point is you cannot be disrespecting these dudes because you don't know what it takes to be at that level as a fan. You've never had to put yourself in that position. That's why I always say to fans, get into boxing. Box. I don't care if you play box. I don't care what you do. Just box. Do it. So you understand and respect the sport itself first. Before you even go to the fighters, you respect the sport because you can play it. You can actually do it. You actually can do the sport. So you learn to respect it. So you don't say stupid stuff. Right? That's the first thing you need to have is a healthy respect for the sport. Okay? Boxing brings about discipline. So that you wouldn't say stupid things like that. Okay? And I know some of you are just shit talking and you know better. But at the end of the day, it's a sport that you should respect. And if you have a healthy respect for the sport, now you can look at the icons, you can be critical of them, but yet you can respect them. You can't respect the past greats. They're going to frown on that by disrespecting the present people because they are the continuance of what the past greats had set, the foundation the past greats set. I hear too many people talk about he's running. That's not boxing language. Stop it. And he's a coward. He fights like a coward. And shut up. Then you want to go and praise a guy like Billy Conn. Praise a guy like Philadelphia Jack O'Brien. You can't praise these dudes. When Philadelphia Jack O'Brien was facing Tommy Burns, I think it was, he boxed him. He was moving like crazy. Tommy was trying to catch him. Okay? Billy Conn. Yeah, he light up people at light heavyweight, but when he went to heavyweight, he won't boxing Joe Louis, by standing toe to toe. Hell no. The guy's bigger than you. You gotta move. You gotta box. I'm mentioning these guys for a reason. I'm not trying to share with you guys that I know a whole lot of history. I don't care about that. I'm saying the sport is like this. Sav Harris, what's up, my dude? Who moved more than Muhammad Ali? Oh, Muhammad Ali used to move like a freight train. Always moving. Always moving on the toes. Moving. Bouncing. Bouncing. Right? Going for a jog all over the ring. Right? Because that's of boxing. It's a strategy of boxing. Okay? If Ali stood toe to toe with Sonny Liston, he would have gotten knocked out. You don't stand up and go toe to toe with Sonny Liston. Were it not for Muhammad Ali, Sonny Liston would have reigned nonstop. That man was a dynamite in both fists. Dynamite in both fists. You don't stand and go toe to toe with Sonny Liston, people. That's stupid. Okay? You box him. You box him. That's not coward. That's being smart. It's harder to hit a moving target than a stationary one. It's common sense. It's the art of war. Guerrilla warfare. Are the guerrilla warriors, are they cowards? No. But you gotta find a way in war to get an advantage so you can win. Okay? Were the Viet Cong cowards because they were setting booby traps? Hell no. This is boxing. So what I'm saying is, I'm tired of hearing stupid stuff. The only reason somebody would say somebody's running is because they don't know how to catch them. Yeah? And chasing chickens is not going to help you to catch somebody you call quote unquote a runner. You have to learn how to cut off the ring. Then you have to work the body. Okay? That's boxing 101. That's how Joe Louis slowed down Billy Conn. Okay? That's boxing. That's boxing. Anytime you gotta say, or a boxer, you hear a boxer say, oh, he was running. I mean, you couldn't do nothing. You didn't know what to do. You didn't know how to stop him. Okay? You are acknowledging that he was too good for me. I don't know what to do. Nobody says he ran today. Yeah, right. Muhammad Ali. Camacho ran, and I actually like Macho from an entertainment standpoint. I told you, I'd rock with your page. Mr. I want to fight for Man Freddy. Low. Listen, man, my point is this. If somebody says that a fighter is moving, Arislandi Lara is a mover, right? He could sit down, go toes, lock down, and flat-footed, and throw power punches, right? But Arislandi Lara, he moved excessively against Canelo. Frustrated him a bit. Canelo caught up to him, decided to land body punches. Point is, at the end of the day, there is a way to counteract everybody and every single system or style out there. All right? If you're dealing with a mover, a guy who moves a lot, a guy who moves a lot, then what you need to do is slow him down. Okay? And so that's the game plan. But anyway, back to what I was saying. The disrespect that I see fans doing to the present fighters of today. You know, I see them disrespecting Anthony Joshua. I've seen them disrespect Deontay Wilder. I've seen them disrespect Tyson Fury. You know, those are the top three. But now we got some new faces on the block. I've seen them disrespect Andy Ruiz. Andy Ruiz was the last. He was a unified champion. Put some respect on that man's name. First Mexican unified champion. The first Latin unified champion was another Ruiz, John Ruiz. Okay? Have some respect for these guys, man. Don't disrespect them. Okay? They had their different strategies they used in fights to win. That made them successful. So don't disrespect that because you can't do better. You know who the people who can criticize? People who beat them. People who did better than them. They could do it. But who are you to do that? What I mean by that is, I'm not trying to disrespect you as a fan now. But what I'm saying is that we haven't accomplished what they accomplished. We don't know what it takes to do what they did. And half of y'all out here don't want to get punched in the face. Right? Y'all don't want to go through that. So, you're standing by. I know it's entertainment. You want to be entertained. I understand that. I respect that. But here's my problem. When you unfairly criticize someone for something that they're not doing that is wrong. That's within the rules of boxing. That's a game plan. That's a strategy in boxing. If you want to tell me I wasn't as entertained, I was expecting him to do X, Y, and Z, and I wasn't entertained by that. But if you know the style of a boxer and what they do, why are you criticizing them for that? You know this is what they do. They used to say Sweet Pea ran, but then they learned better after Chavez. Exactly. You see, they don't understand angles and stuff, right? So we're not going to go there with that. But Beavis Abide says, you dropped no link. Narcissist drunk, hit a link. Crack a dick. I don't even know what you're talking about, bro. You know, like I said, man, you know, I'm talking for 22 minutes. I have a passion for wanting to see, because I know boxing, I know a lot of people do boxing now. And I could see that there's a fire catching with people and boxing, and even having celebrity boxing, because the celebrities want to box, right? And the reason all of this is coming down, and I like to put down the gun, you know, take up the gloves and all of that that's going on out there. The reason why boxing is getting stronger and stronger, huger. Underground, we could see that happening. But the thing about boxing that I really would appreciate is if we could beef up our boxing knowledge by celebrating our icons. You know, I know there's a king of the mountain kind of behavior out here where people try to tear down a boxer and criticize them, and some boxers actually feed off of that. But I'm just saying that at the same time, who are we to put limits on boxers? Like, this boxer can't never do this, or he can't never do that, or this boxer will never. How can you say something like that? I hear people say all these stupid things, you know, and it's like, you know, I'm going to give you all a good example of a boxer out there. He's a boxer. He's a professional boxer, Jake Paul. And I was listening to Eddie Hearn tell Jake Paul what he can and cannot do. And I'm like, dude, first of all, you've been in the amateurs. You've been to a boxing program. You already know elite boxers don't think like that. If you a boxer, you ain't gonna just step up in there and say, well, I can't do this and I can't beat him. There's no such word as can't in boxing, because you have to push yourself. You have to stretch your mind to the limit. You have to push yourself to the limit. So there's no such word as can't in boxing. That's the first thing. So when I heard Eddie Hearn tell Jake Paul he would never be a world champion, I'm like, man, now you're just giving him more motivation to become a world champion. It might take him 4 or 5 years. It's a journey, but why not? Now you motivate him, and he's like, I'm definitely not gonna do it, right? And he's probably working his ass off, training his ass off every single day and trying to catch up with the curve, because guess what? We've had boxers who became world champion, in heavyweight world champion, that is, though, within the space of, I think, was 5 or 6 years. I think of Trevor Burbick. That's a perfect example. No real amateur background, and he ended up becoming heavyweight champion of the world. Okay? So, I mean, you have to have a healthy respect for the sport of boxing. Obviously, like Anderson Silva has some healthy respect for the sport of boxing. You know, you can't cut corners. You know, you have to work your ass off. And you have to have a healthy respect for the people in the sport of boxing. Do you know what I mean? Because in this sport, it's all about gaining motivation and finding that positivity and finding that inspiration to push through every single time. You know, you have to push through to be successful. So, let me see this guy here. I'm not really seeing anybody saying anything constructive. I'm going to put this user in timeout. So, in the sport of boxing, it's all about being as positive as possible. And it's all about striving to be inspiring to other people, right? Ain't nobody really trying to be negative and tell people what they can't do, or what this, or what that. Unless it's toe to toe, you know, you're in warfare and you're about to fight somebody, and then of course, you know, it's a little bit different. But you look at the top boxers out here, we have to have a healthy respect for the icons of our sport. Can't be going tearing them down. Now, maybe somebody who's beaten them or somebody who's done better than them, like the past greats, they usually, you might see them sometimes tear down some of the present guys, but I don't think that's a good thing either, because you want their legacy to be good so the sport could go on. So it's in your best interest, like how George Foreman is, to speak well of them. And where you don't really got nothing good to say, and it's more emotional, you're going to come from an emotional place, best you just didn't say nothing. You know what I mean? Unless it's a very important point, like doping in boxing or something like that. So, in my opinion, first of all, I'm going to say that it's a great thing to see the kind of talent and the kind of gifting and the kind of boxers that we have today. We have a number of superstars in the sport of boxing. How soon they'll match up with each other, we'll find out in time. We're getting some of the matchups this year that we want to see. And one of them, of course, is Amanda Serrano versus Kate Taylor. We're going to have Shaquar Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez. You know, and very soon we're going to have Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford, which is the mecca of all fights that we want to see. And also we're going to get Devin Haney versus George Kambosos. So I mean that's just crazy right there, right? And tonight we're going to have, of course, Core versus Oscar Valdez. And for Oscar Valdez to have a chance, like I said before, you know, he has to hope that he could walk Shakur into some sort of trap. It's all about trap setting, you know. But I thoroughly enjoy this sport, and I've been watching it since the 80s. I've been watching the sport. I'm watching how it's evolved and how it's changing, and I really enjoy every moment of it. I don't believe that boxing is a sport where it's fixed and there's a pinnacle to it, and you know, I don't believe in that. You know, people talk about the golden era of sports, which boxing was the 80s, and it's been going downhill since then. I don't see that. How could it be going downhill? And we had guys like Pernell Whitaker, Roy Jones Jr., James Toney, Bernard Hopkins, Oscar De La Hoya, Felix Trinidad, Hector Camacho, Julio Cesar Chavez. How could it be going down here when we had Mike McCallum? We had Virgil Hill. We had Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson. All of these guys came after the 80s. They came after it. Right? Then we had the Klitschko's. They taught a whole different kind of ball game because the Klitschko brothers dominated the heavyweight division. And they showed how they could just dominate. Two brothers dominating a division. Right? We had the Klitschko's. And the heavyweight championship of the world wasn't held by an American for a good period of time. And still to this day, aside from Deontay Wilder, we really haven't had, and Bermane Stiverne, we haven't had another heavyweight champion in the heavyweight division in the United States of America. Right? And, you know, Americans are kind of selfish. So, you know, if they don't have an American heavyweight, all of a sudden, you know, heavyweight division is dead and all that kind of crap. But the truth be told, Tyson Fury is a bad boy. He a bad boy. And whether y'all want to respect him or not, that's you have to acknowledge he's a bad boy because he beat Deontay Wilder, and Deontay Wilder's a bad boy. Y'all can say what you want about his boxing. He puts guys to sleep. That's what he does. Okay? And I don't think there's another heavyweight that would do to Deontay Wilder what has been done. A lot of people say, well, nah, you're exaggerating, man. No, I'm serious. He is the tallest heavyweight in the heavyweight division, aside from, I believe, Tyson Fury. Okay, and he's very, very fast. He's very quick. He's very athletic for such a big guy. So, you know, he has a lot of things working for him, and he knows how to thread that needle and get that right hand in. He's gotten it in on everybody he's faced. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that. You can't say you respect the past greats and you look at all this history and you're talking about fighters you never saw in your life, okay, fight. And you have so much respect for them, but you ain't got no respect for the present greats. We can't be talking about it like that. And the more you actually look at boxing is the more you will appreciate the present time we're in. Now, for some boxers who've been in the sport, whatever, and they didn't get their just due and they didn't get the kind of money that they may be bitter, and so they say a lot of things and they're very negative and they try to. But truth be told, you know, if you are a fan of the sport, you know, and you're not a biased fan, you just enjoy the sport, you really do, you will find that the sport has actually done quite well. It's done well for itself. Not only the monies that are coming in, even though we have, you know, sometimes fighters fight less in a year because the sport's more stratified, so we can get bigger fights. Right? It's more stratified. It's built in such a way that there are levels now. And, I mean, it's been that way for the greater part of 20, 30 years, but you have levels now. They always had the NABF and all of that stuff, but now they have levels in the sense that, you know, you get yourself up to contention level, and then you get to fight for a championship, right? Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. Dillian Whyte had to wait quite a while. But he got it, right? And he failed, but he can go back. And see, the thing about it is in boxing, sometimes it's on your second or your third try that you become champion. Not everybody becomes champion in their first attempt. Right? I've seen great, legendary Hall of Fame fighters that has happened to. Bernard Hopkins, his first attempt at becoming middleweight champion of the world ended in a loss to Roy Jones Jr. It happens, right? So, you know, a lot of people think that, you know, I don't know, man. We in a weird time, but a lot of people talk like, you know, they talk like it's the end of the world when a fighter loses a championship fight or loses a title. It's not the end of the world, right? And they try to say, oh, well, you know, Mayweather. Now, listen, man, there ain't going to be no more Floyd Mayweathers. Just like there's no more Pernell Whitakers. Like there's no more Roy Jones Jr.'s. Okay? So let's just forget that. Okay? And let's forget about the undefeated record as well. What's more important is winning the fight that's ahead of you. You can't be thinking you want to be undefeated for the rest of your career. That's cool. But really, boxing is a fight-by-fight basis. It don't matter what you did in the past. Once you're an active fighter, what matters is the fight in front of you and the opponent in front of you and beating that opponent. That's how boxing works. And y'all know this, some of y'all, because some of y'all box. You can't focus on things that you have no control over in the future or things that have already happened in the past. The most you can do is learn from the things in the past, win, lose, or draw, and focus on the present pressing issue in front of you. That's how boxing works. You're only as good as your last fight, right? So basically, what I'm saying is that a lot of times, the fans particularly, and I included, we try to judge people on their wins and losses. You can't necessarily judge them on that. I was in a group, a boxing group, on Facebook, and I was saying to the guys on Facebook, I was saying to them, listen, man, y'all want to go in on Anthony Joshua and his resume. I'm going to ask you all a simple question. Joe Louis, he beat who to become world champion? And just to prove a point, everybody talks about James J. Braddock. James J. Braddock. That's the guy that Joe Louis beat to become world champion. But nobody ever asked, who was James J. Braddock? Who was he? Well, James J. Braddock was a journeyman. Like DeMarcus Chop Chop Corley, who beat Rando Bailey. Alright? Last minute notice. James J. Braddock, who was a journeyman, ended up in a position where he was facing Max Baer. Right? It was supposed to be Max Baer versus Sharkey, but instead of a rematch, he ended up facing Max Baer. It's a journeyman. And that's how he became heavyweight champion of the world. He beat Max Baer, who was a puncher, like a Deontay Wilder kind of guy. But y'all applaud Joe Louis for beating a journeyman. And then y'all want to go in on Anthony Joshua for beating former long-reigning Vladimir Klitschko. Yeah, he was 39, almost 40. But you want to go in on him. But Jack Johnson faced James Jeffries in the fight of the century. James Jeffries came out of retirement. Dude hadn't boxed in a long time. Yeah, he was undefeated. He's out of shape. But y'all applaud him for beating James J. Jeffries. You see what I'm saying? You disrespect the sport when you try to disrespect icons of our time. Because guess what? There's nothing new under the sun in the sense that the dudes today that you're disrespecting, but then as a yesteryear, the dudes today doing some of the very same things the guys of yesteryear were doing. But a little bit more. Because back in the day, you had to beat one guy to become undisputed. Today, you got to beat 4 guys. Anthony Joshua beat 2 guys. I think, no, 3 guys. Right? He beat Joseph Parker. He beat, what's the kid name? The IBF champion. I forgot what his name was. And he beat Vladimir Klitschko. So he ended up in the WBA, IBF, and the WBO. Alright? That's a tremendous feat Given that this dude did it in under 20 fights with not an elaborate amateur career. Won a gold medal too. That's a tremendous achievement. But none of you guys take the time to understand that and to respect that. You're ready to pick sides, Wilder or Joshua, and badmouth. Something you would never do in your life. Never. But you're quick to disrespect. Okay? That's inspirational what I just said. This dude come from a certain background. Dude gets into boxing late. Wins a gold medal. Comes out of that, and he don't want no soft touch. He's fast tracked. And he got 1, 2, 3 belts of the 4. It's tremendous. None of us would have been able to do that. He lost to Alexander Usyk. And this guy wants an immediate rematch. Tells you so much about the guy. Errol Spence, same thing. Dude got in a car accident. Came back with a top welterweight. And fought him. And beat him. Gets an eye injury. Fights in a unification against a world champion. Stops him. But he's afraid of Terrence Crawford and he don't want to do it and he's ducking and dodging. And they are lies. It's not true. The guy is showing you he's trying to face the top guys. He wants the top guys. He wants to clean out his side of the fence and face Terrence Crawford. But you badmouth the guy and you lie about him. How's that respecting the sport? I'm just saying. How's that respecting the sport? I know it's a combat sport. But doesn't truth mean something? Doesn't facts mean something? We went in on Terrence Crawford's resume. But then some of you guys went overboard. Y'all started disrespecting Kell Brook. Y'all trying to want to find excuses for Sean Porter loss. No, he dropped him twice. And his father pulled him from the fight. Ain't nobody ever dropped Sean Porter twice. Nobody. Okay? Nobody. That shows you Crawford's the goods. You might have been skeptical. You might have had reservations. Don't disrespect Crawford by saying, oh, he ain't nothing. He ain't doing nothing in boxing. His resume's empty. What are you talking about? It's these kinds of reckless statements that I don't understand. You're not helping the sport by doing that, in my opinion. How could you love a sport but you bad talk the top guys in the sport? That makes no sense. Whether you like them or you don't like them is really irrelevant. You should have respect, at least for them, to be careful what you say about them. That you make sure your critique's at least honest and truthful. And then most of you don't even know what you're watching at. That's the problem. You know, you go with whatever the commentary team is saying. And it bothers me that some of you are called fans, but you don't really know what's going on. You can't see that this fight is now taking over the fight. There are some fights which are to and fro, and you can't really tell who's winning. And yeah, there are fights like that. But for the most part, you can see whose initiative is working out, who's got the upper hand at this point in time, and so on. Um, so I think a healthy respect for guys like Canelo, Terrence Crawford, Sean Porter. Now notice, not Sean Porter. Sorry, not Sean. He's retired now. Errol Spence, you know, Keith Thurman, Jamel Charlo, Brian Castano. I'm talking about the top guys now. The top guys, right? Nello Alvarez, David Benavidez, Jamal Charlo, Dimitri Sandre, Jamel Charlo, uh, Maris Bredis, Lawrence Coley, the African gentleman, Artur Beterbiev, Joe Smith Jr., Gilberto Ramirez, Dimitri Bivol, right? The heavyweights, the super lightweights, Josh Taylor. Yeah, I didn't think he won the fight against Cottrell, but I still respect him as a champion. Right? It was the judge's decision. The judges came up with that, and he did try to fight back later down the stretch, but I thought Cottrell beat him. Right? That's not being disrespectful, saying I thought this guy got beat. It's disrespectful when you start saying, "Oh, he ain't all that," and you start going in on Josh Taylor. That's when it gets disrespectful. Teofimo Lopez is another top guy. He lost, yes, he lost to Kambosos, but he's still a top guy, and we should have respect for him, whether he's being respectful or not. We should, because he's done things, he's accomplished things in the sport. He got to where he got to through hard work and dedication, which we're not doing. You know what I mean? And then we got a bunch of other guys like Devin Haney. Some of y'all are real disrespectful talking about Devin Haney can't punch and he did that. He runs around the ring and he gonna run. Blah blah blah. Listen, man, don't be disrespectful. That's all I'm saying. Vasily Lomachenko, put some respect on that guy's name, no matter his attitude. You know, Tank. Ryan Garcia. I see a lot of y'all disrespecting Ryan. Ryan's a hell of a fighter, man. A hell of a fighter. I saw him get knocked down by Luke Campbell, and he came back harder. He came back harder. He did. It was like a flash knockdown because he got back up and he was fine. And I was like, Jesus, guy got knocked down. I mean, it was a money punch Luke Campbell hit him with, and that dude got back up from that like it was nothing. You know, Tyson Fury also. It was very interesting. You got the super featherweights. Shaquar Stevenson, at least y'all don't go in on him too much. Oscar Valdez. Y'all going on Oscar Valdez quite a lot. Now, I know there's some fishy things with the T and fishy decision he had against Concierge. I know all of that. But still, at the same time, he's champion. And so we have to be careful how we address him, that we still have respect. You know? Gary Russell Jr. Kid who beat Gary Russell Jr. Kudos to him. You know, at featherweight, we got what's the kid's name? Leo Santa Cruz. You know, super bantamweight. Got my boy Scooter, and we got MJ. I think MJ has the other two belts. Love to see a unification there. You know, and then you got the lower weight divisions. We got the bantamweight division with Nonito Donaire. Guillermo Rigondeaux's up in that division too. Got my boy John Rael Casimiro. That's my dude. We got what's his name? Naoya Inoue is in that division. You know what I'm saying? It's a nice little division right there. Right? We got the super flyweights. You know, my boy from Nicaragua. Chocolatito is up in that division, as well as, of course, Juan Francisco Estrada is in that division, dominating right now, right? So all I'm saying is, and then we got the flyweights, and then we got the light flyweights, and then we got the minimum weights, right? All I'm saying is, these top fighters, they didn't just come there by, osmosis. It was hard work and dedication that got him there. And every single generation, every new generation, they try to tweak something from the previous generation, bring something extra and something new, and their work ethic gets even more intense and even smarter. And in boxing, it's a you continually are learning and you continually trying to better yourself because everybody around you is bettering themselves. They're trying to get an edge. You can't stay stagnant. You always have to be growing. This is why when some people say, well, Canelo, he's a better guy than he used to be, I'll be like, yeah, well, of course, everybody's better now. Everybody's supposed to be better because everybody's supposed to be working on their game. You're supposed to be growing and learning every single day in boxing. If you're not, you're going to get left behind. And this is, I never quite understood it, but whatever. So, if you can't have a healthy respect for these fighters, understanding blood, sweat, and tears is what they do on a daily basis. What you consider the mundane for the glamorous night of boxing where, they end up with a big money fight and a big fight. But it's a lot of fights that got them to that point. You're starting from the amateurs, you're working your way. It takes them like 10, sometimes 15, sometimes 20 years when you include the amateur program. It takes them a mighty long time for them to even get some sort of compensation for all that sacrifice and work. That's why they have sponsors, right? So all I'm saying is, why do we disrespect the best of them? I want to talk about, back in the day. Why you do that? Why do you do that? We're not living back in the day anymore. We're living now. This is the era we live in now. We don't live back in the day. So why are we talking about back in the day? Upcoming fight, Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor. You tell me, what bigger fight in women's boxing you have ever had with a matchup? What matchup you think could be a 50-50 fight in women's boxing? When have we ever had that? When have we ever had Olympians facing each other in women's boxing heading a Madison Square Garden event? Never. Never. We've never had it. This is historic. And we are living in a time where we get to see that. But instead of focusing on that, we're focusing on some shit that's irrelevant. Most of the time, you guys are so petty. And so, you want to talk about, Joshua's resume ain't that great. Tyson Fury's resume ain't that great. Vladimir Klitschko's resume ain't. Everybody not got great, except for your ass, as a fan, who ain't done nothing. Okay? You wouldn't get out there and do some work. No, most of y'all have fat asses and y'all sit down and do nothing. So stop it. Stop it. Don't overcompensate for your miserable life. Stop it. Know what I'm saying? And I just think boxing will go in leaps and bounds if we just stay positive. Especially about the present fighters we have. And appreciate them. Why does somebody have to die? Like Muhammad Ali's grandson said it. Why do we need to give these guys their flowers after they're dead? Right? The greats are with us now. Now. Tyson Fury is a great fighter now. I listen to Canelo Alvarez and he says it too. He says, yeah, this guy's a great fighter and that guy's a great fighter. He separates the good fighters from the great fighters. And I'm beginning to realize that we need to acknowledge these guys as great. when they have abilities and they're living up to their potential. We must call, and when they give us a great fight, we must say it too. That's what made boxing the buzz of the 80s and stuff. It's not you sitting down there like some kind of drunken asshole and condemning everything and bashing everything and everybody who has actually done something with their life because your dumb ass ain't done nothing with yours. So we gotta step it up, man. We gotta step it up, and we gotta show the world what boxing is and enjoy it. And when you gotta say some ignorant ass thing like, "Oh, they running," "Oh, he running," "Oh, he a coward," when you gotta say stupid stuff like that, which the old time greats would never say shit like that, just remember you're disrespecting the sport, and you're disrespecting the past greats of the sport. Just remember that. Okay? Because if a guy's supposedly running, I don't care if he actually is running. He may be literally taking a jog in the ring. I've seen it happen. I mean, shit, it's a ring. And there is a way to catch them and destroy them. Okay? If you know your boxing, they ain't getting away. And they can only run. And like Joe Louis said, you can run, but you can't hide. You can run, but you can't hide. That's real boxing. How much you need? I just had to say it because, I'm tired of seeing people disrespect present fighters. The best of our era. You're going to tear that down? Get the hell out of here, man. Get out of here. Somebody who represents the face of boxing, you trying to tear down the face of boxing? What, you have some sort of agenda where you want MMA to reign or something? It's my sport. I don't love MMA. I love boxing. And if you can't respect boxing, what the hell are you watching it for? Get out of my sport. Let somebody else come back with a passion. And I can speak this as a fan. I'm speaking as a fan to other fans. Because people in the sport, they would want fans to support this sport. But for me, if you can't appreciate what it is you're seeing, if you can't appreciate what it is happening in front of you, then you don't deserve to watch it. Boxing's been around for 100 and something years. It's been around for 100 and something years. And if you don't appreciate the sport, then don't watch it. And spare us your groveling and your grumbling and your annoying rants and raves and tantrums. Okay? You don't want to learn nothing about the sport. You want to speak ignorantly and stupidly and talk about people running. And if you want to bad talk the icons of the sport, you're not coming out here to what I'm saying. You're not coming out here to find anything positive to say about the sport or anything about the icons of the sport that you think is positive that you can take and inspire other people. Get the fuck out of the sport, man. Don't stay here. Okay? Because you're more of a liability to the sport. I know Larry Merchant was the one that kind of started this shit off. Talking about he's critical, but really he's fully just hating on fighters. Alright? But at the end of the day, we don't need people like you. We want people who are positive and can inspire. And you can be critical of a fighter, and you can even say, hey man, this dude, he's avoiding this fighter. Why don't you face the best, whatever. That's okay. And you can talk about, you can have your jokes or whatever. But at the end of the day, the blatant disrespect, you wouldn't, first of all, like Mike Tyson said, and that's why Mike Tyson kicked that guy's ass. You wouldn't say that to the boxer's face. You wouldn't come up to the boxer and say, "You shit, man. You just a bum." You wouldn't tell no boxer that, cause you know what would happen. He'd bust your mouth, knock some teeth out your mouth, right? You wouldn't walk up to no boxer and disrespect. In fact, what you would try and do is get their autograph. That's what you would try and do, right? That's what you try and do. But behind their back, you're talking like a little, you know what I'm saying? You're talking like that. You're tough and everything behind the back. To their face, you never say it to them. Because one, it's not only disrespectful, but it shows you ain't got no upbringing. And you look stupid. Even if they never punch you. When you say your stupidness, and then the person turns out to be a cool person, you feel stupid about what you did. Some of you. So all I'm saying is, okay, so Amir Khan, he's a little chinny, whatever. That's different. But all I'm saying is, when you look at boxers and all the hard work that they put in and how they reach where they reach, we need to have some respect for them, man. Especially the present great boxers of this era. And we got a couple of them. And they are great. Vasily Lomachenko, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, Jamal Charlo. They're great. They're not good. They're great. They're above the normal level. I'm talking about great for this era. I'm not talking all time. They're great for this era. They're the great boxers of this era. Okay? Jamal Charlo, Jamal Charlo, two-time world champion, yeah. 2 different weight classes. David Benavidez. These are great fighters. Demetrius Andrade. Alexander Usyk. Come on, man. Tyson Fury. Canelo Alvarez. These are great fighters. Let's stop with the good fighter. Great fighters. If you winning titles in more than one division, you're not just good, you're great. A good fighter will win one title in one division. Maybe hold on for it for a while. That's a good fighter. Maybe fight, defend his title, fight contenders, maybe not unify, right? But a great fighter, he'll unify, fight the best, fight top guys, fight in multiple weight classes if he can do that. You see what I'm saying? So let's give these guys their due respect. I don't care what race they are. I don't care what nationality they are. Give respect where respect is due. If you love boxing, you're going to do that. I'm going to catch you later. I'm what you need. Peace.